Welcome back to the Sales Gravy podcast and another episode of Ask Jeb. I'm Jeb Blount Jr., and today we're going to do something very special. Not only do we have Jeb Blount, the hardest working man in sales and author of 17 best-selling books on sales and sales leadership, I'm also joined by our longtime content partner and friend from ZoomInfo, Will Frattini. Give us a little bit of background about you and your role at ZoomInfo.
Yeah, thanks, JBJ. Thanks, Jeb, for having me on. Definitely been a fan for a while, so this is kind of surreal to join you guys on the podcast. The quick and high level on me, I spent the last 10 years helping ZoomInfo scale from $10 million of annual revenue to now about $1.2 billion as a publicly traded business. Was part of the first virtual IPO of COVID and was very fortunate enough to be able to go ring the bell with Henry and a bunch of other special colleagues. Family is what motivates me. I love sparring with really sharp sellers and operational leaders to talk about how to be more innovative and efficient when it comes to go to market. I'm very excited to be able to be an asset and partner to you guys, as well as learn from you all and hopefully be helpful to your audience here. Thanks for having me, guys.
I'm really excited to have you here, and I think I'm more excited for the conversation that you both are going to have. The questions that I sourced are from real people who have attended the ZoomInfo webinars that you both have been a part of for a few years now, and they are asking real life questions from salespeople who are in the trenches, and they want to know some very tactical answers. And the first one that we have is from Angie Anderson. Angie asks, "What's the appropriate amount of time to wait between touch points and sequences?" I think this cadencing, Jeb, is what she's asking about. And how long should you run a sequence? Because Angie does, I subscribe to the buy or die mentality, but I don't want to ruin my odds of winning in the future by annoying a prospect.
I love that because I subscribe to buy or die as well. So a prospect is never a prospect, but sometimes now's not the right time. So when you start thinking about building a sequence, the couple of things that will drive your touch points. In short cycle sales, your sequences are going to run shorter periods of time. So you may run, say, you could run a 14 touch sequence over 30 days. You could run a 10 touch sequence over 10 days. But these are prospects where the buying window is typically always open. You're trying to get them to engage, and the stakes are pretty low. On really big, complex, massive accounts, you could run a 2-year sequence. I typically run on some of my larger deals, I'm running sequences that run an entire year. Now, the touch points are further apart on those sequences. So, for example, I might only touch them once a month over the course of that year, but I'm trying to stay in touch, and the purpose of my sequence is to stay top of mind over that period of time, looking for a window where there's an opportunity for us to talk. So you've got to make a decision on what's going to work right for the type of prospect that you're going after. But you're right, Angie, the one thing that you don't want to do is stalk them. This is not about stalking or being, so annoying that people never will talk to you again. You don't want them to block you permanently. You want to make sure that you're running a sequence, and then if you don't get any engagement, right, meaningful engagement, that's really what we're looking for, that they raise their hand. Meaningful engagement could be, hey, go away. I mean, that could be meaningful engagement in the moment. It's a signal. But if you don't get anything, then what you need to do is slot them out of your sequence for a while and then come back to them at a later point in time. So for example, let's just say that you were running a sequence on 25 prospects, and I really like 25 or so prospects to work at one period of time with one sequence, and you ran it over 30 days. Over that 30-day period, we would suspect that probably between 30 and 50% of those prospects, you would get some sort of meaningful engagement from. So over that period of time, half of the prospects you're going to get a signal from, half the prospects you're going to hear anything from. Those, we're going to put them back into the database, pull another group of prospects in, run them through that sequence. And then you're constantly testing to see what works best. But the one thing that's most annoying, and this is when you get blocked if you're running a sequence against me, is if your message is irrelevant or you don't know anything about me. So if you're running a sequence of steps and you're sending messages or you're leaving voicemails, and this just happened to me recently, big software company, very well known, reps coming at me, did zero research on my company, on salesgravy, and left me voicemails doing all the right things. And I completely ignored it and eventually ended up blocking the rep because they overplayed their hand with a generic message. So start with relevance, think about the size of the account and how long it's going to be. And then when you don't get meaningful engagement during that sequence, stop, pull them out, and then come back to it 90 days, 6 months down the road. You've got infinite amount of time to go after them. Buy or die mentality works, but that allows you to bring another group of prospects in and then start the process over. Will?
One, making sure you're spacing probably every 2 to 3 days when you're reaching out, especially to an executive. It just helps to not be, the email that comes in every day. And then most of your competitors are going to give up after their first or second try and never really cared. So you're going to stand out by pushing past that sweet spot, even the 5 to 12. The 14 is right on for what Jeb is saying. And then three, what always stood out to us when we were scaling ZoomInfo is like, if your value resonates today, don't overplay your value and don't abandon it, right? So if you think you have a solution to a problem, probably have that same solution to that problem every day of the week, every week of the year. I was at a dinner the other night with a very successful retired businessman who plays golf all of his days. And all he was like, oh, this one guy, I called him 100 days in a row. He didn't call him 100 days in a row with a different message. Realistically, I think we are all conditioned, and Jeb, we've talked about this, to tune out the first couple hits because you assume it's just a robocaller. And I almost go out of my way now to watch out for how many times does that same person follow up. The first call, did they leave the voicemail or not? Cool. Was the voicemail 5 minutes long, 1 minute long, or 30 seconds? Great. Did I get an email? Cool. My least favorite thing, Angie, is when I write back an email and say, here's how to help, and I never hear anything back. So number one, 2 to 3 days between every step. Number two, your value doesn't have seasonality if it's really good value and you don't need to overstate it. Number three, don't overstate the value. Keep bringing that value in a polite, persistent way. Yeah, people are going to tune you out and block you out. They're probably not decision makers anyway. Um, if someone is really going to block your email, it was probably a horrible email and there's a lot of other people to go talk to. But I do believe in those three kind of simplified tenets. It gets harder and harder because you convince yourself that you have to kind of keep standing out with a new thing every time you reach out. Like at the end of the day, I learned sales in the staffing world, and my pitch was the same every single time. It's like, I specialize in placing senior level software and hardware engineers. Whether I can be a resource for you now or in the future, I'd love to sit down and talk about how we work and what you need, and maybe there's a fit for us in the future. And I literally said that 1,000 times and 1,000 times more. And that was the only way I could get people to meet with me. So yeah, good for you, Angie. I'd be curious to know what Angie's selling. But yeah, cadences for the win.
I want to piggyback on that. So Jeb mentioned a sequence that he was getting that had little relevance to sales gravy and the particulars of his business. And Will, because you are at ZoomInfo, you have a lot of practical insights into how to leverage specific information systems. I know a lot of reps that they sometimes look at the screen and they get overwhelmed by how much information there is. And James Baldwin wrote in and asked, how can I leverage ZoomInfo to create messaging that's relevant to a business? I see a lot of information, but I'm not exactly sure what to use and in the right context. Well, I think that's a question that tees up perfectly for you.
I won't go into a long feature function pitch about ZoomInfo. Jeb knows me well enough, and JBJ, you know that too. I'm not going to make it about that. That said, the value of AI and what gives people the AI edge is to have a foundation of really helpful information that when it's asked questions, it can return context. So what do I mean by that? ZoomInfo has this incredibly massive, unmatched directory of people, companies, signals, information that is on the public web that's just hard to go spend a bunch of time looking for. If you ask the question of what should I do to stand out specifically to talk about this one thing, it will spit back something really relevant, and then you can iterate with it. And I'm talking about our AI application. That is the way of the future with ZoomInfo. All of our customers are moving to that. And it's been fantastic because a lot of our customers have told us it's really hard to make sense of how do I find all this great stuff. The more practical, tactical application of that is, let's say you have, a territory in the finance industry, you're selling to banks, and it's, earnings season, and you're trying to figure out which company doesn't have analysts only thinking about the people reporting earnings in the next week, and you sell a very specific thing around document management. Asking ZoomInfo to say, hey, can you look at interactions we've had 6 months ago with these accounts? Can you look at signals that are public and on the web? Can you look at interactions that these people are having and posting about or putting in their 10Ks, or, people that have been recently hired? Can you just give me the top couple that might want to talk about this right now? And this being the SL information software. It's going to spit out a great answer for you. And then Jeb, we kind of riff on, what do you do next? Talk about, hey, can you write me a very succinct 30-word or less opening email with a question to a CEO that they actually want to respond to? We're seeing our customers finally kind of breathe a sigh of relief because historically you've had to have a data scientist or a RevOps person, or Jeb, I've heard on one of these podcast episodes in the past, like sometimes I think you said it took you a while to get value out of ZoomInfo because you had to train the team on how to use it, right? Now it's just I can ask it to go find me all that stuff. The good news is what that ties back to though is that it's pointed to, hey, we want to go find why I'm reaching out and then talk about something specific as opposed to just, hey, build me a really good list of really good cell phones, which are great. But it's been able to kind of recommend, hey, let's capture all that first party data is the industry lingo for like all the calls and emails that you've already had with them. Let's look at third party data, which is industry lingo for like intent signals or publications or things that they talked about or people that they've hired and combine that into a point of view and make it very succinct and easy for that customer to say, oh, you actually took 5 seconds. You really do know about me. And where in reality, it's hundreds of hours of work and a lot of money and sweat equity from our engineering team to put into going to get that stuff.
But it's so important because if you think about the most insatiable human need, it's the need to feel important, the need to feel significant, the need to feel like we matter. And when you demonstrate that you even just took a little bit of time to try to find out something about them, a little tidbit that you can bring into the conversation, it instantly makes them feel like you care, especially out with field reps. We work with a lot of field sales teams. Field sales is coming back in a really big way. It's kind of crazy how many field sales teams there are. The same thing would go into ZoomInfo, go into AI and say, what are 3 questions that we could ask this company or this stakeholder who's the owner of this small business that would make them interested in talking with us? And so all it is a question about what they're doing, what they might be interested in. And it works because if you go in and ask them something about their business, they're more likely to talk to you. And if they're more likely to talk to you, then they'll give you the opportunity to start asking them questions about how you can help them. My beef with the rep from that big software company that was calling me was, you were doing the right things. You were layering in your calls. You came at me on LinkedIn. You came at me on phone. You came at me via email. But think about it. When you sent me the direct message on LinkedIn, you didn't know anything about me. My profile is right there. All my posts are right there. If you'd gone to ZoomInfo and done an AI search on me, particularly because you're coming to me, you'd have found all kinds of things. You might even found the millions of times, I say millions of times, not literally, but the millions of times I've said, if you mention my book when you come to me on a prospecting call, I'm almost always going to respond to you. It doesn't take that much. And so for me, having put so much effort in teaching people exactly how to get me to respond to a prospecting call, to just blatantly ignore all that because you're too lazy to go do the research, that's what bothers me. Will and I did a webinar earlier on time management, but Will was saying that, AI makes lazy salespeople lazier. That's the problem that I have, is that it's so easy now to go grab a little bit of information, especially when the stakes are high, that just give you a leg up. It just tells them that you even tried a little bit. When you're prospecting, almost all that it takes is just trying a little bit. I'm a massive fan of ZoomInfo. We use it as a business. And I always say this for everybody, ZoomInfo doesn't give it to us for free. We have a contract and we pay for it. So we choose to use a tool that we love. But when I'm trying to find information on people, that's the first place I go. And it doesn't take very long to find it. And it doesn't take very long to use it. But if you don't do that at this point in time with AI and all the tools that are out there, well, from my standpoint, it's like sales malpractice.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Sales Gravy podcast and this episode of Ask Jeb. We are going to have a few more questions coming up in the future, so pay attention to the Sales Gravy podcast. You can find us on Spotify. If you're listening to us right now on Spotify, Apple Music, or Google, or YouTube, like, subscribe, give us a review. It helps us a ton. It's our only marketing for this podcast. Jeb and Will, thank you very much.
Hey, I'm doing a happy dance because you watched this video. Make sure that you click like and subscribe so that you never miss one of our amazing sales training videos.